Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into something truly fascinating. We are going to unpack independent researcher Desiree Munoz's forensic historical rereading of a pivotal moment in Philippine history, the 1521 alliance in Cebu. Now, this is a story you probably think you know, right? But what if we treat this historical encounter like a documented crime scene? Doing that reveals a much more complex, and frankly, a much darker reality about the foundations of colonial power and local governance.
Okay, let's dive right into this. What if the very first Christian conversion in the Philippines wasn't actually about a spiritual awakening at all? What if, instead, it was a highly calculated, deeply pragmatic political bargain? This is the central provocation of Munoz's research. She challenges us to strip away centuries of myth-making and look at the actual nuts and bolts transactional mechanics of what happened when Ferdinand Magellan arrived in Cebu.
Section 1. The Myth of 1521.
For centuries, the 1521 alliance between Rajah Humabon of Cebu and Ferdinand Magellan has been, one of the most heavily mythologized episodes in Philippine history. It's usually framed as this purely spiritual and civilizational threshold. The legendary tale basically paints Rajah Humabon simply and conveniently as the Philippines' very first Christian convert. It's presented to us as a story of enlightenment, a peaceful welcome of a brand new faith. But here's the thing, relying only on that sanitized version leaves us completely blind to the actual political machinations going on at the time.
But modern historians, they are completely flipping that traditional narrative on its head. Scholars like William Henry Scott, Rosil Mojares, and Danilo Girona, they've been increasingly rereading this famous baptism. And what do they see? Well, they definitely don't see a sudden change of heart. They see raw political pragmatism. They view this religious ritual as something much more earthly. To them, it was a way to officially seal a military alliance.
Section 2. Anatomy of an alliance. Let's move to the timeline and see how this builds, because when you break down the rapid sequence of events over just a few days, the transactional nature becomes totally undeniable. Look at day 1. It doesn't start with a sermon, it starts with a punitive raid on a nearby village, which was followed immediately by Magellan demonstrating Spanish firepower. By day 2, Magellan is making an explicit promise to use that massive military force to make Humabon the supreme chief over all of his rivals. Day 3? That's the mass baptism, literally the signature on the contract. And day 4 is the payoff, a targeted military hit taken out on Humabon's local rival. So this is a rapid, highly calculated sequence of military escalation, not some slow spiritual conversion.
Section 3. It started with murder.
Now, we aren't just guessing at Humabon's motives here. We actually have eyewitness testimony. The primary chronicle of the voyage, written by Antonio Pigafetta, explicitly documents Humabon's direct request that Magellan kill his rival, Datu Lapu-Lapu of Mactan. This is the smoking gun, right? It establishes an undeniable motive. Humabon saw a foreign power with devastating weapons, and he immediately leveraged that power to eliminate a domestic threat. So the crucial point is that this wasn't just a military alliance. Munoz argues it was the founding transaction of a governance pattern. Just think about the exchange here. On one side of the ledger, Humabon bought outside legitimacy, foreign military backing, against his rivals, and ultimate personal supremacy. But look at the price. Look at what he sold to get it. He traded away the entire pre-colonial model of the datus. He sacrificed communal trust, local stewardship, and the existing spiritual order, all for centralized personal power.
Section 4. Redefining the datus.
Here, Munoz contrasts two drastically different models of sovereignty, and this brilliantly illustrates the structural damage that was done. First, we have the pre-colonial ideal, the datus as a steward. This kind of leader was bound by custom and heavily dependent on the communal confidence of the people. It was a reciprocal relationship. But through the Spanish alliance, Humabon adopted the model of a colonial proprietor. The office became extractive and performative. It began relying not on the trust of the community, but entirely on the threat of foreign military power. And this shift also destroyed a vital partnership. See, in the pre-colonial system, the datus didn't rule alone. They were structurally paired with the babaylan. The babaylan provided essential spiritual counsel, and importantly, they served as the interim head of the community whenever the datus was absent. By accepting a foreign religion purely as a political tool, the datus was forcefully decoupled from those spiritual roots, and that vital balancing partnership was completely severed. Now, you might be wondering, was this capitulation inevitable? Absolutely not. And Munoz points straight to the historical record to prove it. we have Datu Lapu-Lapu's documented refusal of this very alliance. He didn't just resist either. He was actually part of a wider allied network, stretching from Mactan all the way to Ibabao in Samar. Lapu-Lapu serves as the critical foil in this story. He proves that alternative, non-collaborationist models of sovereignty were readily available and actively defended during this exact same period. Humabon's choice was exactly that. It was a choice. Section 5. A Legacy of Betrayal. Muñoz frames this 1521 encounter as the prototype for a recurring pattern in Philippine political history. The pattern? Securing local power through an outside alliance at a rival's expense. It's the local sovereign who eagerly trades away communal stewardship for personal advantage, all neatly hidden under the convenient cover of alliance or conversion or legitimacy. This specific pattern, relying on external force to settle internal disputes and extracting power rather than stewarding it, well, it continues to resonate deeply in how local governance operates. Which brings us to our final thought. The next time you watch political maneuvers unfold, whether it's, say, local leaders leveraging national power to crush a rival, or just switching parties purely for access to resources, I really want you to think about this explainer. When you look at modern political alliances, are you seeing the ghost of Humabon's 1521 bargain? History isn't just stuck in the past. Sometimes it's the exact same playbook still being used today. Thank you so much for joining me as we explored this incredible research. Keep questioning the narrative and keep learning.